Hi everybody, this is Hero from the Birds back with another Shadowlands video. We're taking a look at Arcane Mage in 9.2 on the PTR, and I have 4 different clips for you I'd like to walk through. I went with various groups here in 15s just to kind of test out some of the new affixes, and there's one that's kind of interesting that we can talk about when we think about Arcane Mage for Mythic Plus. But I'm playing a kind of unusual build. I have the details on the right here. We're using things like Arcane Familiar, Resonance, Arcane Orb, and Enlightened to work alongside Night Fae and the Bombardment Legendary. And the focus here is on having multiple Touch of the Magi's within a pack, because we get an initial Touch of the Magi, and then we get some CDR from our Night Fae ability, so that we can usually get a Night Fae, or excuse me, another Touch of the Magi off at the back end of a pack and still blow it up with lots of barrages in execute. So I've been testing this out, and honestly the groups have been kind of a headache on the PTR. You know, people quitting, people not knowing how to do anything, or people just wanting to come in and test one pull before they walk out, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to have to keep doing this until I can get a couple of solid keys where I can show you the whole thing, because there's lots of messiness. And there's a few observations I have just in terms of making use of this kind of ability in high mythic pluses. Rune of Power is a tricky thing to use in general, so there's a few tips for making sure you do that, including things like blinking forward when you're casting Touch of the Magi, or blinking forward when you're casting your Rune of Power, or making sure you're in melee before you hit Arcane Power are kind of useful things to keep in mind so that you have some space to move around, because your AoE is largely based in a melee environment. So anyways, I'm going to show you 4 clips. I had a couple of lag issues in the PTR as well through a number of these dungeons, so it wasn't great, but the first one I want to show you is just the kind of opening burst that you can take a look at, and you'll see why I said I had some lag issues, because in the second half of this pull, you can see here as we open up, we have our Magi running. We try to get our Night Fae going and fire off as much damage as we can into our target before Touch of the Magi blows up. Just going to pause it here. So I would actually expect a much higher burst profile than 40k. If you didn't get the lag that I do here, you can see my whole computer just about folded, and then I get kicked back in, and of course the Windwalker Monk and the Fury Warrior have decimated the pack before I could do much. But what I wanted to show you is I have another Magi on the back end of this fight, and so you can see me here just collecting charges and firing barrages into the execute side of that to get what is pretty reasonable damage out of this legendary. So it's highly mobile. If you don't run into the lag boss, it's kind of decent, and I was having a lot of fun with this kind of stuff all the way through. We're going to go to another clip here at about 9:30 just to kind of showcase another sample without the lag of what this looks like. So you're going to be opening with your touch, then you're going to hit Arcane Power and fire off a barrage, then you're going to want to press Arcane Orb and do your Night Fae ability to get Orb back, then you're barraging Orb-Barrage. And that's kind of what it looks like in general, and you can see here when the touch goes off, our damage profile spikes. I know these are mobs that you don't really care about killing, so there's a lot of pad damage here. Don't worry about that. I'm just showing you the testing version. And you can see Magi is back up already, so we can get another round of it off. I should have probably barraged before, but you get the idea here of us going back and forth. So it's that cycle, and I'll just pull this back one more time so that you can see in how it works. I have one more example in another dungeon here, but you're looking to find the target that is priority, and you wait until the tank's in a good spot with it. Then you're going to do your Touch of the Magi. Here's where you could have blinked in, because you're pressing Arcane Power right on the back of that Touch of the Magi, that first one, so that your rune is closer to the mobs. But you do have about 4 or 5 GCDs from range where you're firing off barrages or Arcane Orbs, so you can be at a distance for most of the effect of that first rune that you cast. I would suggest saving the second rune for your second Touch of the Magi of the pack. You can see here I drop it down, I get ready to cast Magi, and then off we go. And it would be the same cycle of getting barrage into orb into barrage. So that was a kind of useful thing to test. I'm going to go down here to our second video, and this is where I want to talk very briefly about fighting against the different affixes that we have. There's different little bosses that you can proc in the new 9.2 Mythic Plus season. And what we're looking to do here is kill the one, I think it's UHR or something like that, to give yourself massive CDR. So I'm going to just press play at this point, and you can see, I just wanted to show you the kind of CDR you can get. Almost all my stuff is on cooldown and coming back. You get like a little ticking CDR, and then you get a burst of CDR at the end. So watch when this thing dies. I'm at 20 seconds on touch. It's going down, and boom, you get the burst right there. So it cooled down by, I think, everything by about 15 seconds or so. Now this, I'll just show you one more time so you can see what that looks like. Here it comes, I'm at 18 seconds. The effect is on me. I'm about to get hit by it. Boom. So maybe it's only 10 seconds of CDR across the board. I forget. But one of the interesting things is this opens up some opportunities for planning. I mean, I know there's a haste one as well, which is actually okay for this kind of a build, because you're just pumping arcane explosions into your Touch the Magi window. But you'll notice here, it's cooling down everything. It's cooling down Arcane Power, Touch the Magi, Arcane Orb, and critically, our Shifting Power. So if we were playing Venthyr with Mirrors, if we were playing Spark, we would get CDR on those as well, which means maybe there's some places where you can line up really, really big pulls, get the CDR of perhaps Spark in Kyrian, and do another whole combo. Now, if you're playing Harmony, you're not likely to be able to build up those charges, so there's other options. Like, what about the Evocation Legendary? Because we could have added Evocation as part of this. You can Evocate, it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. You can Shifting Power, and the Evocation is giving you the Intellect buff, and then you kill the thing, and both of them are getting reduced down. So maybe a much higher uptime on buffs like this. I don't know to what degree we'll be able to min-max them, but I just wanted to showcase it for you so you can see it in action, what actually happens. And let's move forward just to another somewhat clean example of the gameplay loop that we're trying to access here. So, oh, I think I've put it a bit too far ahead. Let's just back it up here to about this. So we're just waiting for some people to get back, killing this mob, and then we're going to go into this pack and do the same thing. Touch the Magi into Arcane Power. He decides to pull big, so let's go for it. Fire off our Barrage Orb, and we're going to press our Night Fae ability, Shifting Power, fire off a Barrage Orb, fire off a Barrage. You can see we get all that in before the touch comes down, and it blows up in a nice explosion. So the pack got hit for, there's maybe 3 or 4 targets in there. I don't know exactly, but this is a pretty reasonable cadence in Mythic Plus to have that kind of thing. And here's our touch right back at the end of that pack. So you can see, I think this might be a 15 or something, where you have people blowing Kyrian, what is that, the sword from the Fury Warrior. And it doesn't matter. It was a really regular cadence, I felt, the whole way through. The cooldowns were pretty consistent. You have big burst at the start, and then you have a little one in the execute phase, or a medium one, I should say, because the barrage is filling in some of the damage profile. Really fun. In single target, it was also pretty reasonable, though we actually didn't get a lot of tests in these 2 dungeons because we had a couple of people just leave. But this scales really nicely. Obviously, the barrage damage is limited to the 4 targets it hits, but it hits like a truck, and Arcane Explosion, guys, does a ton of damage. Not to mention Shifting Power itself. So really, really fun to play. You can see people dying, and I think our priest left. Really, really fun to play, really mobile. You can see here this cadence is very similar every single time. I'm looking forward to testing out the runes that you can get, specifically the CDR one, because I think it fits nicely with, certainly with Night Fae, maybe with some of the others. I mean, if you have Mechanicos, maybe you get a lot more cooldown reduction overall when you're playing Spark. Like, we could get some crazy things. I don't think you could get another Spark window within a Spark window, but maybe a Touch of the Magi window that with Shifting Power, and the window gets us another Touch of the Magi really close, like within a few seconds. Maybe it's inside the window. I don't know. I'll have to kind of test it out once I get a solid group together. But I just want to show you this hope you guys are enjoying your day, and go Arcane Mages. I think there's a lot of fun things to test ahead of us. So enjoy the PTR, and we'll see you guys again next time.